So in the hydraulic system, the power transfer takes place by two means. One is hydrostatic, the other one is through hydrodynamics, or you can say that hydrostatic systems or hydrodynamic systems. So the study of the power transmission, when the velocity of the fluid is very minimal, that is called as a hydrostatics. We will assume that the power transmission due to the velocity of the fluid or kinetic energy of the fluid is very less. And in hydrodynamics, we are considering that the velocity of the fluid is very high, and because of the velocity, the kinetic energy of the fluid is being transferred to generate the mechanical output. That is the hydrodynamics. So in the subject, whatever we are studying, that is the transmission of the power from pump to the actuator, is primarily because of the hydrostatic power transmission. That is what we will be dealing in detail. So if you are considering that there is a high fluid power that is coming in the hydrostatic mode, then you are having a high pressure of fluid that is coming, that is acting on certain area. So when it is acting on a certain area A, it is trying to generate a force, because pressure multiplied by area is going to give you the force, and this force causes the load to be moved forward by a distance S in time t. Then the power developed will be equal to force into distance divided by time, or you can say that pressure multiplied by area multiplied by the distance the load has moved divided by time. That is how we can calculate the power that is transmitted. So in the hydrodynamics, it is mainly because of the velocity of the flowing fluid. You are having a nozzle. When the fluid is coming out of the nozzle, it is having very high kinetic energy, which it is impacting on the turbine blades. Then the blades are going to rotate. So when the blades are going to move, since the blades are hinged about a shaft axis, the entire shaft is going to rotate as the fluid is continuously impinging on the turbine blades. So that is the hydrodynamics. So Pelton wheels and all these turbines, different types of turbines, are all examples of hydrodynamic systems, whereas piston and cylinders are examples of the hydrostatic systems. So what is the hydrostatic law says? Hydrostatic law says that the pressure at any point on the fluid, inside the fluid, mainly dependent on the height of the fluid liquid column that is present above it. So it does not matter how much of fluid is present, it is only dependent on the height of the liquid that is present above that particular surface. So here you can see a high liquid column of height h is present in all the 5 cases A, B, C, D and E. But the amount of liquid that is present is completely different in each of the 5 cases. So here you are having a constant cross section and you are having a liquid of height h. Then here you are having a small capillary below it, and at the top you are having a large container. Then again here you are having some different type, different shape of the container. Here you are having some conical type, then you are having a irregular type. Now if you are considering the pressure generated at the bottom surface here, that is all equal to P, which is equal to rho into G into H. So whatever pressure is present here because of the liquid present above, that will be equal to, up from the free surface of the fluid up to here, what is the vertical distance. That is not the inclined distance, it is only the vertical distance you have to calculate. So rho into G into H, that will be the pressure of the fluid. That is pressure that is present at this particular point. So that is the hydrostatic law. Now if you want to see what is the force generated by this particular pressure, now the force is equal to pressure multiplied by the area. Now again in this case, if you are seeing the amount of liquid that is present in the 3 cases is different. So you are having less amount of fluid, whereas here you are having the maximum amount of the fluid present over here. Now the force generated because of the liquid column that is present here, that is equal to F, which will be equal to pressure multiplied by area. Now what is this pressure? Pressure is equal to rho into G into H. So rho into G, rho is the density of the fluid, G is the acceleration due to gravity, H is the height of the liquid column. So rho into G into H multiplied by A will give the force that is generated at this particular point. If the area area of the section over here is constant in all the 3 cases, then the force generated is also going to be equal in all the 3 cases. So this is the basic hydrostatic law. Now Pascal's law is another important law which governs the hydrostatic system. It states that in a closed container, the pressure will be equal in all the directions. Now for example, you are having piston A1, you are having different pistons A2, A3, A4 and A5. whose sizes are completely different. Now, if you are neglecting the hydrostatic pressure, that is pressure because of the height of the liquid column, if you are neglecting that, then if you are applying a force F1 on this particular piston, then F1 divided by A1, that will be equal to the pressure that is generated by this particular force. So let it be 100 bar pressure. Now the same 100 bar pressure is acting on this piston, this one and this one. So now what is the force generated? Now the force generated will be pressure multiplied by the area. So what is the pressure generated here and what is the area of this particular piston? That will be the force. So if you are having larger area, you are going to have larger amount of force that is going to be generated. So that is the Pascal's law. So whatever is the pressure of the fluid is there, that is acting equally on all the surfaces for a given unit area. So now if you are taking this particular container, you are applying the force here, then whatever the pressure is generated, it will be equal on all the surfaces. If you are taking the force per unit area, that is the pressure, that also will be equal on all the entire surface of this particular body. So whatever the small area you take, whatever the force is acting, then that will be equal to pressure multiplied by the small unit area you are going to consider. So this is very, very important because in whatever direction you want to consider, the pressure will be same. So you have to know the area, then if that area is moving, then we know that what is the force that is being generated by the movement of that particular area. So usually the moving element is called as the piston. So for 100 bar pressure, if you are having a area A5 here, then 100 into A5 will be the force generated at this particular piston. So like that at different pistons, we can calculate what is the force generated. So this is the basic Pascal's law. This is what is the principle behind the Brahma's press. So in the Brahma's press, what happens? You are having two cylinders connected by a pipe. So you are applying a force at the smaller cylinder and you are trying to lift the load at the larger cylinder. So this is the basic construction of the hydraulic press. So you will be having two cylinders. So cylinder 1 and cylinder 2. So you are applying some force here. Usually on the smaller cylinder, you are trying to apply the force. You are applying a very small force over here, and correspondingly you are going to get a very large amount of force here. Now why you are going to get a large amount of force here? So the hydraulic jug shown here operates based on the Pascal's law. Now here you can see here you are having the piston below which you are having the fluid, and you are having another cylinder, another piston below which you are having the fluid, and the two cylinders are connected by a horizontal pipe here. Now though this fluid here is in a sealed container, so whatever fluid you are applying, pushing here down, that fluid has to only space here to come and fill here. It cannot enter into the atmosphere. So we will say that it is a closed container. So in a closed container, the Pascal's law is going to be applicable. Now what is the Pascal's law? Help us. So you are applying force F1. So you are applying a small force on a small area. So force divided by area is going to give us the pressure P. So F1 divided by A1 will be equal to the pressure P in this particular cylinder. But since it is a closed system, whatever pressure is developed here, the same amount of pressure is going to be developed in the particular cylinder also, and also in this particular pipe. So which is connecting the two cylinders. So whatever pressure you are generating here, the same pressure is going to be generated over here. So now again in this case you are having the force F2 here, A2 is the area and P is the pressure. So we know that pressure P is equal to F2 divided by A2, or the force generated here F2 will be equal to P into A2. So since A2 is very large value as compared to A1, you are generating a very large amount of force. So if the area is in the ratio of 1:10, A1 is 1 unit square or 1 square unit, A2 is say 10 square units, then the force will be magnified 10 times, which means you are applying 100 Newton force here multiplied by 10, so 1000 Newton force will be generated in the other cylinder. Now, if you are increasing the force, something has to reduce because you are not using any other energy source here. So whatever you are using here, that you are taking it out. Now, what is going to reduce? Now we will see. Now here, what is the work done here? Work done will be equal to force divided by multiplied by the distance traveled by the piston.
So distance traveled by the piston will be, if you are considering it as S1. S1 is the distance traveled by the piston or the stroke that you are giving it to the piston. So F1 into S1. So that is the total work done in this particular piston will be equal to F2 multiplied by S2. So which means F2 is the force generated here. S2 is the distance by which the piston is going to move. So F2 into S2. So work done is equal to the work output because we are not assuming any losses. So F1 multiplied by S1 will be equal to F2 multiplied by S2. Or if you take the ratios of F2 by F1, it will be equal to S1 by S2. Which means if the force is increasing by 10 times, the distance this one will move will be 1/10 of the distance that is moving over here. Which means if F1 is moving by 10 millimeters, if the F1 is moving by 10 millimeters, here you will be having a movement of only 1 millimeter because the area is larger. So whatever fluid is coming into the cylinder, it is spreading over a very large area and you are having a very small movement. So you can calculate this in other way also. If you are taking S1 is the distance traveled by the piston in the first cylinder, S2 is the distance traveled by the piston in the second cylinder, then we can say that volume of fluid leaving the cylinder 1 will be equal to volume of fluid entering the cylinder 2. So volume of fluid leaving the cylinder 1 will be equal to A1 multiplied by S1, it will be equal to A2 multiplied by S2. So if you are taking out the ratios, then A2 divided by A1 will be equal to S1 divided by S2. So in this way also you can determine what is the distance traveled by the second piston. So small force, small area, but large distance here is going to generate large force and a small distance because you are having a large piston. Now how do we determine the velocity of fluid? Now we know that some amount of fluid is leaving the cylinder 1 and it is entering the cylinder number 2. Now we should know what is the time in which the piston is coming downwards here. What is the time in which the piston is coming downwards? So in that amount of time, you are having some amount of fluid which is coming into the cylinder. So you are having amount of fluid, that is volume, and you are having the time. Volume by time is going to give you the parameter known as discharge. So once you have the discharge, then if you know the area of cross section of this particular pipe, then it is possible to determine what should be the velocity of the fluid in this particular pipe. Or if you know the velocity of the fluid through this particular pipe, then it is possible to determine what should be the diameter of this particular pipe. So in this way, various parameters can be determined. It can also happen that the piston here is reciprocating, say 60 times per minute. Then you should know in 60 strokes how much of fluid is going here. So that is how you have to analyze the problems and you have to solve for the required unknowns to determine the different sizes of the various elements.
Now these hydrostatics principles are used to apply the brakes in automobiles. So you are having a lever and you are applying a very small force, and because of the lever action you may be able to magnify the force you are applying, and this force is used to push the piston in a hydraulic cylinder. And this is a completely closed circuit here. You are having a small cylinder. This high pressure is acting on a very large piston here. So when the high pressure is acting on a large sized piston, you are going to generate very large amount of force. So here you may be applying some 20 newtons of force, and the distance you may be generating is say 30 millimeter. Then here the movement will not be 30 millimeter, it will be significantly less, but here you are going to get a very large amount of force. So large force means usually the distance travelled will be very small. That small distance is more than sufficient for the brake pads to come and grip the braking element over here, and the vehicle is going to stop. So that is how you are going to apply the hydraulic brakes. So when you release this particular your leg, because of the spring present in the cylinder, the piston will be lifted upwards. So the brake pads will be opening out and the wheel can continue to rotate. So this is the same principle of hydrostatics which is applied for the automobile brakes. This is again the same thing. So you are having multiple cylinders. So you are having 4 brakes pads at the 4 wheels of the vehicle. You are applying the brake force on the pedal. So from there the fluid is moving, and since these are all the closed containers, because it is not open to atmosphere, the pressure developed in all these particular 4 cylinders will be equal. So you are going to generate equal amount of forces on all the 4 wheels. So you are able to grip, or you are able to stop the 4 wheels at the same time without any slippage. So simultaneously you are able to apply the brakes for all the 4 wheels. The next application of hydrostatics is air to hydraulic pressure booster. So you want to increase the pressure of the hydraulic fluid. So what you are doing is you are using a compressed air. Now how the pressure is increased of the hydraulic fluid. So you are supplying the low pressure hydraulic fluid through some check valves. Then once it is entering over here, the check valves are going to close. Now what you are doing is you are applying a low pressure air over here. So low pressure air is acting on a very large piston, so you are able to generate a very large amount of force. So this large amount of force is acting on a very small area, so you are able to generate a very large amount of pressure. So low pressure air you are utilizing to increase the pressure of the hydraulic fluid. So if the pump capacity of the hydraulic system is very less, but you are having a compressor which is having a lot of spare capacity, then you can use this particular system to increase the pressure of that particular hydraulic fluid. So that is also possible. So here mainly you are using low pressure compressed air, and you are driving the piston, and the other end the piston you are having a smaller size. So large force acting on a small area, you are going to get a very high amount of pressure in the hydraulic fluid. You are able to lift a very large amount of load. So this is another applications of, you can say, hydrostatics, and that is called as the hydroforming. Now if you want to have some completely closed components, if you want to deform them, then you are not having sufficient systems, but you can use a principle of hydroforming to deform when you are having some hollow components and you want to create the deformation, which are not accessible by other tools. So you are having a pipe and you are to create some kind of bulging in the middle, then there is no tool available to create this, or you have to heat it and you have to compress it and then you have to put some dye. So that is not very convenient. So one of the common methods is you are putting the pipe in a dye here and you are closing the 2 halves of the dye. Then from both the ends you are supplying a pressurized hydraulic fluid. The hydraulic fluid is going to enter into the pipe and it is going to stretch the pipe, and it is going to get the required shape of the dye over here. Or this is another configuration, you are having a sheet and you want to deform it into the particular shape of the die. You are supplying high pressure hydraulic fluid, the hydraulic fluid is acting on the sheet and it is going to deform the sheet to the required shape. So that is also possible. So this is the usage of hydrostatics principle for different kinds of manufacturing operations. So next one is the hydraulic jack. Hydraulic jack used for the lifting of the vehicle for doing some puncture work or some other repair work. Also operates on the hydrostatic principles. So here you are having a very large cylinder which is having a large piston, large diameter piston. That is where we are trying to lift the load. Then you are having the lever using which we are trying to lift this particular load. Now the lever is hinged and it is connected to the small cylinder, that is the input cylinder. Then when you are operating the hand lever up and down, what happens is this piston is going to move up and down. So when the piston is moving upwards, that will be the suction, and when the piston is moving downwards, that is the delivery. Now this is a symbol for the check valve. Check valve means it is going to allow fluid in only one direction. Now this is a bleed valve. We will see what is the function of it in a moment. So you are having a reservoir here in which you are having the oil. On the top of the oil is under the atmospheric pressure. Now when you are lifting this particular hand lever upwards, then you are having a low pressure over here. So whatever the low pressure is here, that will cause the atmospheric pressure to push the oil into it. The check valve will open, the oil will continue to flow and it is entering into this particular piston. As you are moving your lever upwards, the oil is continuously filling into it. Now when you are trying to push the hand lever downwards, the piston is going to move down. So when you are pushing the piston down, some pressure is created. That pressure is more than the atmospheric pressure. So this check valve is going to close. Now whatever the hand lever you are operating, you are applying some amount of force over here. Then because of the lever principle, you are applying a large amount of force at this particular point. So a large amount of force acting on a very small piston, which means you are able to generate a very large pressure in this particular cylinder. Now that pressure will be more than the load that is applied over here, and the area it is acting, some pressure is created. The pressure over here is more than the pressure present over here. So because of this, the chuck valve will be opening and the fluid will flow like that, and it is going to enter into the cylinder. And because of the larger pressure which is acting on the area, a large force is created. That force will be more than the load, so the piston will be moving upwards. Now once you reach the bottommost point, again when you are trying to move upwards, the piston will be moving upwards, a low pressure is created, this chuck valve will close, this chuck valve will open, and the fluid is entering into the pump. Again as you lower it, this chuck valve will close, this chuck valve will open, and the fluid is going to enter into the cylinder. Now you can see for one stroke you are supplying only very small amount of oil over here, because whatever the stroke length is there multiplied by the area, that is the volume, so you are able to send only very small amount of oil. So that small amount of oil is entering into the cylinder means the piston will be moving by a very small distance. So you may have to do some 50 or 60 movements of your hand to lift the automobile vehicle by say 1 inches or 1.5 inches. Thereby you are able to perform your operation. If the amount of distance that is to be moved is larger than by hand movement, it may not be possible. You are using some kind of drive, maybe electrical drive or electrical motor, to operate this particular lever, or you can put a pump and you can lift the load. That is also possible. So this is the basic principle of the hydraulic jack. Now what is this bleed off valve? Now once the load is completely lifted and you want to lower it, the basic idea is whatever oil is present inside, that has to directly come into the tank. So if you want to do that, you have to allow the path here, you have to open the path over here. So that is why we will say it is a bleed valve. Bleed valve means it is allowing the oil to bleed out of the cylinder. So you open this particular valve, the fluid will simply flow in this path, and it is going to enter into the reservoir.